Hello and welcome back to part two. I forgot to fix that up there. Part two of parenting kids with ADHD. It may feel like life is like a circus, but it's really just a grand adventure and a great balancing act. My name is Peggy Moore, and I am a life coach and a school nurse, and I organized and created this presentation to give to my parents in my school district who were struggling with kids with ADHD and wanted some to learn a little bit more about ADHD and some ways to help their kids. So the objective for this part two is to learn how to create an environment where your child can thrive, to develop an even better relationship between you and your child by learning a better way to parent kids with ADHD. I've talked with many parents who have several children and they'll only have one that has ADHD, and they recognize that the parenting techniques that maybe they're using for their other two kids or other three kids is not working with that child that has ADHD. And that's because that child with ADHD is different. Their brain is wired different. And we know that each child is different. So helping you try to learn some ways to some parenting skills that may be different from the normal parenting skills to help that child that has a diagnosis of ADHD. And then I want to be able to help and enable you to better manage your child's behavior by asking the question why, and then learning skills to validate, empathize, and collaborate with your child to come up with solutions. So there's lots of alternative ADHD treatments. You can use behavior therapy, there's nutrition and supplements, exercise, mindfulness, and sleep. Remember I talked about in the first video about how those basic needs need to be met for us to be at our best, right? We need to make sure that we have enough sleep, that we're getting the proper nutrition, that we're not filling our body with lots of processed food. I call it Play-Dohs and Legos. So Play-Dohs are those processed foods full of sugar, refined flour, things that just are hard for our body to break down and aren't giving us the nutrients that we need. And then there's Legos. Those are the strong building blocks. So those clean proteins, those omega acids, omega 3s, omega 6s, omega 9s that you find in like salmon and nuts, those actually are great for the brain. They help to give the brain the nutrients that they need to create growth in their cells and to be healthy. So make sure your child is getting the nutrition and the supplements they need. And then exercise. Kids need to move, which has been really hard in this time of COVID. And kids having to be, I know we live in Okinawa, and so any kid that has just got here to Okinawa, they have to stay for 2 weeks in their house. They're quarantined to their house, so they can't move around. And then they come to school, and our PE teacher is awesome, and he has them run, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't run. And as a child, that's pretty hard, and it's because they've been sitting for 2 weeks in this quarantine. So recognize that your child needs to expend that energy. They need to exercise. That will help with some of the issues of kids that fidget all the time. You want to give them that exercise and the activity that they need to get that energy out, and it can help actually calm them and help set their brain up to be able to do educational activities. There's actually studies that show that just 10 to 15 minutes of exercise produces a brain chemical that gets your mind ready to learn. So when your child comes right home from school, give them 10 to 30 minutes to go outside and run around and get some exercise before they come in and sit down and do that homework. It, I think, can make a world of difference. It gives that brain that BDNF factor that is needed to learn, and it helps calm down some of that energy. Mindfulness. We can teach mindfulness techniques to our children. And then sleep. Oh, sleep. Please make sure your kids are getting the required amount of sleep, which is 8 to 10 hours for our youngsters. They need to go to bed early and get that rest so that they're prepared for that day. You know how you feel when you don't get enough sleep. So making sure they're getting those basic needs. So this is an analogy that I love to use, and every plant has their own requirements in order to grow. So I have a couple different plants in my house. I have a cacti, and then I have a philodendron. You know, the one that has the leaves that just go everywhere and they grow big and long, and it actually is pretty long and spreads out. And that's because I water it every day. I talk to it, and that soil is moist, it is airy. I know it's getting the nutrition that it needs. Like I said, I talk to it. And then I have my cactus. My cactus I water about every 2 weeks. And I only water it a little bit because it doesn't like too much water. It likes its soil dry. It likes to be right in the sun. And in this warm weather in Okinawa, that's what it loves. But plants grow. Plants need different things to grow. When a flower doesn't bloom, we don't attempt to fix the flower, we change the environment. If I was not watering that philodendron, but every 2 weeks, like I did my cactus, I would not try to fix the philodendron. It's not its problem, right? I'm not taking care of the environment. We change the environment. So I give it what it needs. Creating an environment to help your child thrive is our goal. And we know, as Ross Greene says, children do well when they can. So we need to change that environment, manipulate that environment so that it is helping our children be as successful as they can be. One thing we talk about and is so hard, I work with a lot of military, and so military family members, and especially the dads are like, you just do it, you just suck it up, right? That's what the military kind of teaches their soldiers. But it doesn't always work with kids with ADHD. So strong arm parenting doesn't really work because kids with ADHD have those overwhelming emotions. They have difficulty with that executive functioning, so that frontal part of the brain that helps them with planning and organizing and thinking steps out a couple times in advance. If I do this, what's gonna happen? Those kinds of executive functioning skills are lagging with kids with ADHD, and so we just need to help them. And then ADHD kids are often impulsive. So they may react to something before they take a minute. So they may use that emotional part of the brain or the limbic part of their brain and make that snap decision before they let the frontal part of their brain catch up. So authoritative parenting is increasing demands, increasing expectations, those harsh and punishments, and it's based on fear. And that's not how we want to raise any kid, but definitely not one with ADHD, because all you're going to get is back push. And we want to be able to figure out how to work together with our children that have a diagnosis of ADHD so that we can help them be successful. So we know that children who grow up in authoritative homes associate obedience and success with love. We want our child, whether they have ADHD or not, to know that they are loved for who they are, for their unique characteristics, and for what they can give to this world, and just for who they are. These children, authoritative parenting styles and authoritative homes those kids actually display more aggressive behavior outside of the home because they're modeling that behavior. They have a lower self-esteem because those rigid expectations they know they can't meet. And so they feel that, and they feel it's chipping away esteem. So they also tend to conform easier because they want to adapt to all those rigid rules. They're trying, but we want our kids to be able to stand up for themselves, be able to make their own decisions, to be able to advocate for their needs. We don't want them to conform to other people's standards. We want them to be able to be themselves and to really recognize the great things about themselves. So we need to remember that any behavior is communication, right? And a child's negative behavior is not personal. So when your child gets upset and blows up, that could be ADHD. It could be the ADHD part of their brain. Let's make that the enemy and not your child. It's not the child's fault that they have this brain that's wired a little differently, this brain that's going like a Ferrari, and they don't know how to stop it. Our job is to help them and love them and teach them how to control those brakes a little bit. So the first thing is accepting the fact that, like all children, your child is imperfect, like all of us. Don't believe all the bad news about your child's ADHD. I sit in lots of meetings and we're so quick to say, well, this child is not doing this and they're not doing this and they don't sit still during reading time and they don't follow directions and they don't this and they don't that. And it's a constant bombardment for this child's self-esteem. I want you to just not believe all that because you know what? Let's look at the good things. Let's look at what this child can do. Many children with ADHD can sit, and if they have a project that they love, they can concentrate on that program, that single program or process or activity for hours, and that's amazing. And so we need to tap into that. And then don't overestimate or underestimate the importance of ADHD medication. I always say ADHD, along with depression and anxiety, are imbalances in our brain. They're imbalances in chemicals. And if we can take a substance that can kind of correct those chemicals, it just gives us a fighting chance. So it gives us a fighting chance to learn those skills. It gets us ready. And it doesn't mean that your child has to be on medication forever. It just means that that medication can help them learn the skills that as they get older and maybe get off that medication, they have the skills to fall back on. They have the tools that they need to be successful. So one of the things is to really think about is the difference between discipline and punishment. Discipline is teaching the children rules with expectations and consequences that go with those rules. And punishment is usually arbitrary, and it is something that doesn't make sense to the child, and they don't make that connection. And so they're not able to kind of put that together, and you're not going to see a change in that behavior. So we never want to punish a child for behavior that they are unable to control. So an outburst or crying or those things that they are out of control of, we need to figure out why, what's going on, so that we can separate the deed from the doer. What exactly was causing, what were they thinking in their head? What caused them to exhibit that behavior? I love this statement and I use it over and over again. Kids do well when they can. Kids want to please their parents. They want to do well in school. They want to be able to socialize with their peers. They are trying, and our job is to help them. Remember, I said behavior is a form of communication. It is a form of communication and it tells a story. And just as Simon Sinek says, we have to start with the why. What is causing this behavior? I gave a story in the last video about you going to work and you didn't get a lot of sleep last night. You weren't able to eat breakfast and you went into a meeting and then you had someone coming in and they were telling you this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong and you just snapped. But your why for why you snapped was you didn't get enough sleep and you didn't feed your body and give it the nutrition that it needed and that your brain was a little tired. That was your why. And so figuring out your why, telling that story helps us figure out how we can fix some of the problems. So when we're searching for the why, we need to, number one, model calm behavior. And we need to be able to talk to that child. What is going on? Can you tell me what's causing you to cry or yell or lay on the floor or hit or throw things? Can you tell me what's going on? What are you feeling? I understand that you're feeling frustrated. I see that you're feeling angry. I see that you're feeling hurt. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How can I help you? Using that empathy and concern and patience. I think one of the things hardest for parents, I know for me as parenting, is patience. Giving that child really the opportunity to tell me what's going on in their little head and in their little body. What are they feeling? What are they feeling a tightness and stress in their head? Are they feeling a tightness and stress in their tummy? Are they feeling that sensory overload where there's too much noise, or there's too much lights, or there's too much activity going on? So really helping to understand where that frustration, where that anger could be coming from, and helping them and talking them through that and collaborating together and creating a solution together. So modeling is so important in parenting. It's important as a teacher. It's just as important as an adult working with any child. But modeling that behavior of how to stay calm in adversity. So I have a teacher that will tell her kids, okay, it's getting a little bit much in here. I'm going to go sit at my desk and I'm going to count to 10. I'm going to take some deep breaths and I'm going to calm down, and then I'm going to come back in front of the class and we will finish this discussion. That is modeling the behavior. That is saying the teacher telling the kids, I'm frustrated. I need to take a break. I'm going to go sit at my desk and I'm going to take a break. What a perfect way to model that for our kids. Teaching our kids how to identify their feelings, teaching them the vocabulary. So we all know the words kind of angry, mad, happy, sad, but teaching them some more words, giving them that vocabulary. So I'm frustrated. What does it mean to be frustrated? I'm maybe a little worried or a little anxious. What does it mean to be worried? And then how do those feelings show up in your body? Does worried show up in your tummy? Does it show up in your head? Does it show up in your shoulders? When you're worried, do your shoulders feel tight? So identifying those feelings, identifying how they show up in your body. We'll talk about this more when we talk about emotions, but teaching children to identify their feelings and using a wide vocabulary. I feel calm. I feel tired. I feel sad. But why do I feel sad? Because I feel sad because I got my feelings hurt. Or I feel sad because I really wanted to play this game and I can't play this game right now because I have to do homework. So really helping them to identify those feelings and identify their why, and then helping them problem solve. So for example, my son needs to come in and do his homework, but he wants to play his game, and he's been able to play his game for 30 minutes, but now it's time to come to do homework, and he's starting to get upset. And so number one, we prepare for this because we say, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to play your game, and then we're going to do homework. And then about 5 minutes before, we say, okay, about 5 minutes from now, we're going to put up this game and we need to do some homework. So we're helping them with this transition. We're helping them get ready. But what if, say, he doesn't want to stop that game, and so he throws the controller, gets mad, stomps, throws a fit, or cries? We can say something like, I can see that you're feeling frustrated. I understand. I understand that you want to play your game. Your game is really fun. But remember, we had a deal. And what was our deal? Allow him to be able to tell you that. Because as you come to these decisions and choose these activities together, that is when they have buy-in. So if before you talked about, okay, when you come home from school, what do you want to do first? Well, I want to play my games, Mom. Okay, well, I need you to do your homework. So you want to play your games and I want you to do your homework. How can we make this work together? Well, let the kid decide. And they'll say something like, well, I can play my game for 30 minutes. Or maybe they might say, I'm going to play my game for 2 hours and then I'll do homework. And then you can say something like, 2 hours is a little bit of a long time. I feel like if you play 2 hours of your game, you're not going to have time to do your homework. How about 60 minutes? Or how about 30 minutes? Use the time to negotiate and teach your child those negotiating skills and how to problem solve. So the problem is we need to get the homework done, but we want to play games. How can we solve this so that your child is getting what they need and then they're also getting what you need or the work that they need to get done? This helps to not only strengthen your relationship, but it's a collaborative form that teaches your child how to, number one, advocate for their own feelings, advocate for what they want, and how to negotiate. So try to identify some of your child's whys this week. When you're watching their behavior and they're having an outburst, or you're watching their behavior and they seem frustrated, try to really model the behavior of being calm and asking them questions to help them figure out what's going on and how we can make this better. And then use those skills to collaborate with them for times that are difficult. I know in one of my classes, the mom had a lot of difficulty with their child bathing. They just didn't like the feel of the water. It was a sensory issue. It was very hard, but unfortunately, we need to bathe. So coming up with a solution that worked with them, and it took lots of working together and talking together and coming up with a solution. She originally had first tried, let's just throw them in the bathtub, let them cry and scream. We'll just get done what we need to get done. But that was so draining for the mom and draining for the child. So explaining to the child the purpose, we have to bathe, okay? We need to be clean. We don't want to smell. We need good hygiene. Figuring out a way, what is it about the water? What is it about the soap? What is causing the issues? And figuring out how to make it work for them, collaborating together, and let the child make the decisions. Help the child, direct them. If the child says, I never want to bathe, well, my concern as a parent is that never bathing is really not one of the best choices. So figuring out a way to work it together. So this week, spend some time figuring out your child's whys, and help collaborate on some decisions to help your child organize themselves, to be able to do the things that you need them to do. And I hope this week goes successful for you.